What is happening, YouTube? Cowboy here, and welcome to the first build video of many for Code Vein. In today's video, we're going to be taking a look at the Mage build that I used for endgame content. This is a very, very potent Mage build, dealing buttloads of damage. It can tackle anything in the game. Lots of element variety here, and all in all, I found this to be the most enjoyable playstyle out of the various playstyles that I tested. So there are going to be some minor spoilers as we're going to be looking at various blood codes and weapons and blood veils, but as for content spoilers, we're going to be sticking in the depths to show off progression, so you don't have to worry about seeing any late game zones or anything like that. Now, to jump into the build, we are working with the Harmonia blood code. Now, the reason for the Harmonia blood code is pretty straightforward. This has access to an S scaling and willpower, which means that our dark gifts hit like trucks. As you can see, we have a 1309 rating on those, so that's quite beefy. Now, in terms of progression, you would start off as a caster, of course, which, as you can see, is at 1131. From caster, you could go up to Dark Seeker if you want to play with those spells a little bit, but it's not really needed. Isis is going to be the next big one you're going to work with. There's going to be quite a few spells that we want to pick up in Isis, and this is a very potent kind of mid-game oriented mage blood code. And then lastly, of course, we end on Harmonia, which is going to be the pinnacle of our damage. Now, there are a couple other blood codes you're going to want to pick up some spells from. There's one over in the Fion blood code, there's some over in the Skagath blood code, and then there's one over in Hades as well. But for the most part, the three that I showed, the Harmonia, Isis, and Caster, those are going to be the ones you stick with. And the other blood codes you don't necessarily need to use. You could simply unlock the abilities and pay to inherit them. Moving on to our weapon, we're going to be working with an Argent Wolf Blade, and more importantly, you're going to want to have Devour on it. Now, this is a super late game sword. Until you get access to this, there's two primary alternatives. You could work with just your basic old Sunset sword, which, as you can see, has less damage, but the main thing we're looking at here is the drain rating and the mobility. We still keep normal mobility, and our drain rating is still 0.65. If you have the pre-order bonuses, the Crimson Longsword Devourer is also a pretty decent choice here, as it offers slightly higher defense, but late game, the Argent Wolf is going to be what we go to. For secondary, go with whatever you like, but keep in mind your mobility. And then as for our blood veil, we're going to be working with the Suicide Spur. Now, I would suggest going for fortification on this. Fortification will still keep you at a normal mobility. You'll still have very high damage here in defense. And all in all, fortification is just a solid go-to choice as long as your mobility does not change. Now, until you gain access to Suicide Spur, which is quite late, there are some alternatives that you're going to want to work with. The first of which, if I can remember where it's hiding, here we go, is the Raven Fatigues. Now, this is going to be the first real Mage Blood Veil that you find, and this is going to carry you through a pretty large chunk of the game. You're going to work with that until you gain access to the Black Blood Liberator, which has slightly higher Dark Gift with an A scaling and willpower. And then, of course, the final one you're going to have will be the Suicide Spur. Moving on into our passives, I like having Health Stimulant. Health Stimulant is actually just a really solid choice. This comes from one of the melee classes, but this is a pretty solid increase to health. You can see I'm at 2569. Without it, I'm at 2234, and having that extra chunk of health is really going to help you survive, especially against some of the late game type bosses. We're going to want Max Ichor Boost. This is going to add 4 to our Ichor. An alternative here is Vow of Ichor, which will add 6, but it'll lower your maximum HP. So something to keep in mind, if you want to just go pure mage, pure glass cannon, you could run both Max Ichor Boost and Vow of Ichor, but as you can see, I'm down to 2,000 health with that, which is a little bit risky, and why I like running Health Stimulant, because, I mean, 500 plus health is a big difference here in keeping you alive. As for our other two, you're going to want Mind and Willpower up. This is just outright going to increase your damage. And then our final choice is going to be Weapon Drain Rating up. And this is incredibly important. I cannot stress enough how important Weapon Drain Rating up, along with enhancing your weapon for drain, are going to be in terms of your self-sufficiency. Now, as for our spell loadout, our first is going to be Volatile Storm. Now, what's nice about this is it is a massive AoE. It does a ton of damage, and it's actually considered a physical-based mage spell. And what's so great about this is it gives you an option to get in damage against enemies that are resistant against elements. Now, this comes from, I want to say it actually comes from the Harmonia blood code, so it's pretty late game. Moving on from there, we have one from Isis, which is going to be Fourfold Verdict. this is going to be our on-demand nuke. This will summon 4 very slow lightning balls, almost similar to Affinity, and this will absolutely decimate anything it hits that's not lightning resist. We go for Blast Bolt. This is going to be our fast on-demand damage. It's similar to Firestorm, but just with better scaling. And then Execution. This one comes from the Hades tree, and this is going to be our AoE option. It's just a ton of outright damage that we can use to nuke an enemy. Until you gain access to that, Crimson Moon is a very decent alternative, but Execution just absolutely smashes. Moving on from there, I like to keep Bloodshot on. This is just low Ichor cost, and it's some quick on-demand damage that's pretty respectable. And then Ice Barrage, which is another up-close kind of in-your-face burst of damage. So the final one, well, this one I guess is kind of important to show off Gift Prowess. This will essentially just increase your casting speed at the cost of 5 Ichor. The main time I would use this is going to be a boss, but outside of that, it's not really necessary. And then, of course, Restorative Offering, just to keep your companion, who should be serving as your tank, up alive in the fight. Now, just to show off the spells and how much they're doing, on our Blades of Sand, you can see we are hitting 6284. Here's our nuke with the lightning. And it's a very slow move, but as you can see, the damage of this thing is undeniable. 7855. As for our close range, 5237. And what's great about that is this is a massive AoE. It's even bigger than it looks for the hit range, which is why I like that so much for when you get into a bad situation. Our lightning, that's just our quick on-demand damage. Our basic blood bolt, and this is great for knocking off enemies that are hanging on ledges or stuff that's far away. And then lastly, Ice Barrage, which is just quick, upfront, in-the-face damage. It's important to note that Ice Barrage does have a spread to it, so because of that, if you want to max the damage with this, you want to use it while you're right up on the target. Now, there are a lot of different abilities you can play around with in Code Vein, and that's one of the things that makes this game so much fun. Some alternatives I like mentioning are Guard of Honor. Guard of Honor does some decent damage. Draconic Stake has very high damage, but it also has one of the most disgustingly slow casts in the game. One of the main alternatives I mentioned earlier was Crimson Moon. This is a pretty respectable AoE option. He has a very wide range on it, as you saw right there, so that's a very good choice to run with until you gain access to Execution. Ember Reversal, another decent choice just for some on-demand fire damage, if fire is what you need. As you can see, very quick cast on that. Now, one thing I want to talk about is figuring out your enemy's elemental weakness. While this is going to be my standard go-to loadout for most encounters, there are going to be times where you'd want to go to fire or ice or lightning or what have you. And one of the best ways to do that is, of course, working with your main 4 moves. So we have Plasma Roar, Freezing Roar, Blazing Roar, Sanguine Roar. Coincidentally, Blood, Fire, Ice, and then Lightning. And what I like to do is when I'm going into a boss fight or a new encounter, I'll basically use each of these abilities once and determine what the boss is weak to. If it's doing comparative damage with like lightning or blood, I'll keep my current loadout. If it's resistant to those and I need fire, you can always work those back in. The roars are very decent moves, very respectable damage on them, pretty decent cast. You can see 5237, so that's pretty good damage there for how fast that's coming out. But especially in the end game, I don't consider those the end-all be-all. If we're not talking about resistances, I think you're a lot faster off getting out those 2 moves. Those are my quick guys, the Lightning Barrage and then the Ice Barrage. Just very, very upfront fast damage. Where'd my Storm go? Yeah, Volatile Storm. What's great about Volatile Storm is essentially you can walk up behind an enemy, get off your backstab, and then while they're recovering, you can go into Volatile Storm, so the moment they stand up, they get hit by it, and they're going to get shredded. All in all, just a very solid, balanced loadout that can tackle pretty much any content the game throws at it. Now, one of the things I do want to mention is if you don't have anti-inhibit, one thing you might want to look into is inhibit resist. You can get this from the Survivor Blood Code. And inhibit resist is super useful because inhibit, essentially what inhibit's going to do is if you get hit by it, it's going to lock your spells for about 20 seconds. So you can run both inhibit resist to stop that in addition to inhibit removal. The resist will put up your threshold enough that you can pretty much always get off a removal before you get hit with inhibit. So I just wanted to give special mention to those since, you know, if you get inhibited, it shuts you down as a mage. But anyway, let's jump on into the depths, show you what this thing is capable of. We're going to go through one stretch of the depths and fight our way up to a boss. And I think you guys are going to be pretty blown away by just how ridiculous this is. So to showcase the build, we are down in the depths, and this is one of the late game depths areas. We're just going to kind of run on through, murder everything we see, and show her on off. So already with a lost invasion. Recording done, mucked up for a second. And I want you to pay close attention to my Iker stock here. You'll notice that the Iker, it's so easy to sustain. Even with fighting all this stuff, all this crazy bullshit. Anytime there's something big, we go for a backstab. And then get the wake up. Don't stand up. Get me my free launch. Anytime something's kind of slower, that is our nuke. You also notice I have Yakumo out here. You can run different. You can run whoever you want, really. I just think Yakumo is a really good choice if you're playing as a mage, because even though he doesn't benefit you with his attack buffs and whatnot, he does serve as an excellent frontline tank. So he will be up front, tanking all the bullshit. And that just makes survival that much easier for you. Notice how just spamming our attack, we're back up to 9 Iker already, and that's what makes this so nice. Very easy to maintain your Iker count. This is even easier on bosses, because bosses essentially you'll get enough Iker to do a cast, dump out your nukes, and then just back to what you were doing. So it's kind of like a DPS on, DPS off type playstyle, whereas otherwise you just don't really have enough Iker generation.
No.
Right into that. See, just swinging through my entire stamina bar was enough to almost fully get me up on Iker. Probably dead for my orbs. Yep. Already down. Like, it's just silly, you know? You do absolutely ridiculous amounts of damage with this build, and just a couple whacks here and there, and you got your Iker back up, and that's all there is to it. There's a little spot we didn't clear. We'll go over there real fast. But yeah, so some big takeaways here. Obviously, what we're using is a very balanced loadout. We have some pure physical damage. We got lightning and we got blood as our mainstays. But if you're up against something, you can easily swap to more fire or more blood damage, or whatever is needed, really. This is just my preference for just all all around just general damage, you know, you're getting good. And the casts aren't too bad, you know, 5, 6, 7, those are pretty heavy. Our quick casts are 5 and 4, of course. Really like our quick lightning orbs in particular. It's just a lot of damage you're putting out very quickly. Bayonet. I don't think I have that. RV Mastery, that's also new. Flame Barrage. Oh, nice. Well, there you go. Now you got Flame Barrage if for some reason you want that over ice. Which element-wise, there is no one element that's stronger. Fire, ice, lightning, blood, they all have comparable damage. It's purely going to come down to the resistance of the target. So pretty much, you know, just pick what you need as per the situation, and you'll be fine. But yeah, this area is cleared on out. So we're gonna wrap this one up here. I'm trying to like save some of my depths because this is like a late game depths area, and you know, I need more depths to show off other builds as well because I got quite a few more coming. So we'll close this one on out. Up next, I'm probably going to showcase the strength build with what weapons I recommend and what I liked going for that worked well. So stay tuned for that. But otherwise, thanks for coming on by. Hope you all enjoyed it, and I'll see you soon enough with more Code Vein.